Participating in the Permanency Practice Initiative has also emphasized the importance of the collaboration between the courts, the agency, the families, and the other parties that we work with, to include the guardian ad litems and the solicitors. Our collaboration is critical for the kids. If you can imagine, if we were not working together, if all of our systems were not working on the same page, the ones that would suffer the consequences of that are the children. They are the ones that are dependent upon us as system providers, as administrators, as judges, as guardian ad litems, to make sure that we are working together to help achieve and meet their needs. Their safety is in our hands. And how we manage that from a time perspective, from a collaborative perspective, how we manage that is critical to them. They cannot afford us not working together.
Yes, and what the initiative did, at least the PPI did, was make sure that all three of those stakeholders signed off on the practices that were going to be implemented and how they were going to be implemented, and even involved the president judge of the county as well. So I can tell you, even prior to coming on the bench 16 years ago and being involved with the agency, that just didn't happen. And quite frankly, even between the court and the agency, that didn't happen. Even though we weren't at odds and we would talk, it wasn't as significant, it wasn't as inclusive or as detailed as it is now in terms of the court and the agency all being on the same page with what practices are going to enhance the lives for children and families, and the county commissioners understanding, even though there might be some investment up front by them, that in the long run, long term, shortening the permanency of a child in care and in custody and reunifying earlier is far more cost effective, far more beneficial to taxpayers, and far more importantly, significant for children and families. That's been enhanced because of what's being done at the front end saves money at the back end. That's a new concept. And I shouldn't say a new concept, but that's a concept that would be difficult for a county commissioner, for the court to fully and completely understand that result. And that's what has happened with the Permanency Practice Initiative.
I think it's critically important to, number one, form relationships with all key stakeholders, particularly when we're talking about the dependency process. Understanding and knowing your judge, understanding and knowing your children and youth administrator, knowing your line staff. One of the things in Dauphin County that really opened my eyes as a commissioner, and I would suggest the same for any judge or commissioner, quite frankly, who was getting ready to take over an awesome responsibility that would determine the future of where a child is placed. And particularly in key cases that are certainly going to determine a lot of behavioral issues based upon decisions that judges or county commissioners make, is to understand each role of somebody in the Children and Youth Administration. We've done so far in county government about 90 different jobs, from a frontline caseworker to 2 weeks ago I was working in intake in the General Protective Service Unit and the Child Protective Service Unit of our Children and Youth Agency. It's one thing to listen to what directors or advisors may tell you about an organization that's run smoothly for a long time and before you got there and after you're going to leave, but it's another thing really to understand the jobs that people do specifically. We have committed people who oftentimes are highly educated, master's level degrees, who are making $10 to $15 an hour because they have a passion to serve people. They have a passion to make sure our children are protected, and to understand each of the roles and functions in their job will give you a much better perspective in a leadership position about the decisions you make both financially and judicially. The second thing I would say is don't use any excuses as a reason you can't form a relationship. Whether it's past issues, whether it's something political, whether it's something you perceive as a conflict of interest, should not stand in the way of doing what's in the best interest of our kids that we serve. Ultimately, it's not about me as a commissioner, and it's not about you as a judge. It's about the individuals who are sworn to serve and protect, and to do as much as we can to form those relationships, to educate ourselves, to make sure that we understand what all of the best practice initiatives are, understand how we can do it that is ultimately going to save money for taxpayers and provide the best outcomes for our kids and families. And the idea of simply picking up your phone and calling a judge and saying, would you mind going out to breakfast? Would you mind having a discussion with me about what's happening in our dependency system? Include your children and youth administrator. And the idea that this is somehow a conflict of interest is only specific to individual cases. We're talking about an overriding philosophy that we want to all have, and I believe truly in Dauphin County it shows. I've got an excellent personal relationship with our dependency court judge. I've got an excellent relationship actually involved in almost the daily operations of our children and youth agency. And even our juvenile probation department and children and youth agency are not competing. They are working together for the best interests of the kids. And you set that tone as a leader, you set that tone as a commissioner, you set that tone as a judge. And if that is your philosophy, and if that is what you model as your behavior, ultimately your organization will follow.